Welcome into Yard Prep on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick in the 5 Reasons Sports. I got Lewis. I got Eric. We got the full crew on a pregame show before the Dolphins play in Houston. This is a must-win game. They are all must-win game. Everything is must in your life. Like everything you do is must, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't do it.
I will say this, Ethan. I will say this. It's going to look like preseason with what Miami has in store at offensive line today. We'll get into that.
Yes, we will get into that, and we will have Coach Smith break all of that down for us. How are the Dolphins going to look at the offense? Well, they're fine. They're fine on the offensive line. They're fine. Anyway, sorry. Okay, so we'll get to all of that as we go forward. We do want to mention on Prize Picks, you can still use the code 5. You can still play in the state of Florida. You can put down $5. You can get $50 to play Jalen Waddle over 4.5 receptions. Take it to the bank today. Okay, well, you take it somewhere, wherever it is you bank. Use the code, again, 5. You get $50 to play right away. Compare players from different teams together.
That Patrick Mahomes free square is still up for grabs.
Yes. Thank you, Lewis. So thank you, Lewis. The Patrick Mahomes free square, I think you can play it up to $25. I think you
10
can split it up over
10. I got 10. 10 is 10. They flip and choose. It's
okay, so it's $10. So you can play it $10 today. You can pair it with anything else on the board today. So pick one play you like, and then go from there. It's Patrick Mahomes over half a passing yard. All right, but let's get to it. Lewis, I'll start with you today, and then we'll have the Erics here evaluated. The offensive line. What are we looking at for the Dolphins today in Houston?
We have a big problem. For as much as Kendall Lamb was talked about as being optimistic for playing, he is officially listed as inactive for today's game. So that means that Teron Armstead is out, Kendall Lamb is out, which means that obviously since Austin Jackson is on IR, that means I do recall that Ryan Hayes was brought up from the practice squad today. So we're probably going to have Patrick Paul at left tackle and then Ryan Hayes at right tackle. The good news is that Ryan Hayes is familiar with the system at least. So at least it's not completely. Why are people shaking their heads? No, like he was drafted.
Jackson Carman. Jackson Carman's been on the 53, and that's what I've heard is going to be the replacement if Lamb couldn't go. So I expect it to be Paul and Carman.
Well, we'll see. I guess I don't know. I mean, it's possible that they picked him up because they needed to have him on the roster and they couldn't put him on the practice squad. That doesn't necessarily mean. We'll see what ultimately ends up happening. I can't imagine that they pick somebody else. Well, maybe. You know what? At this point, offensive line, I don't even know. I really don't, because offensive line has done so much shifting and shuffling.
Isaiah has experience as a tackle.
Who now?
I'm sorry, Eric. Go ahead.
Isaiah Wynn has tackle experience.
Yeah, not good experience though. So that's the difference.
Well, Liz, I'm going to go back to you in a second though, because if we're going to talk offensive line at the beginning, all right, Coach Smith, you have to alleviate our fears here.
Yeah.
How do they work around this?
I can't wait to hear this.
Look, there's not great options, right? If you're down to your, let's call Patrick Paul the fourth tackle, and if it's Carman or whoever it is the fifth tackle at this point, there's no team in the NFL that's going to do well having your number 4 and 5 offensive tackles in the lineup. And I'm not a big fan of Carman. I'm not expecting, great stuff out of him if that's where it is. Or, Hayes, not expecting great stuff from him at tackle. Isaiah Wynn had some pretty good early years with the Patriots at tackle, but that wasn't a zone blocking scheme. So I'm not expecting, if that's where there's not good options. So, this is going to come down to being able to get the ball out quickly. This is definitely going to be one of those games that it's going to ride on Tua to be able to get the ball out quickly, because understandably, if he holds on to the ball, right, there's going to be pressure on the edges most likely.
Okay, and this is D'Amico Ryan's coach team. The Texans, I was just looking at their metrics for this season, and they are basically top 5 in most categories, particularly as a pass defense. They've been very good this year. And so I'll ask this as we go to the other Eric on the board. How is it just about two? I mean, we're looking at a lot of short routes for Hill and Waddle got back involved from a target standpoint over the past couple of weeks. In fact, for all the talk about Smith last week, he didn't have a catch until the overtime, and then he had 3 catches in the overtime, including the touchdown. So you're probably not going to have a lot of time to kind of set up those deep routes, the 9 routes, that kind of stuff. Do you trying to work? We see some wide receiver flats. We're going to see what are we going to see here? How do they get the ball in their hands?
I mean, I'm not sure this is the game where you're going to get a lot of touches for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think this might be a game where, Devon Achane and Johnny Smith are your highest reception guys today, particularly for that reason. I know that Houston is down Jalen Petre in the secondary, but I'm not certain Miami could really set that up, to take advantage of it, considering what they have at the tackles and the fact that they don't have they're not likely to have time to create those deep opportunities for the offense. So if you see Jalen Waddle and you see Tyreek Hill, it's going to be a lot of what they've been doing, those quick 10, 15-yard in routes over the middle of the field. And they're going to try to attack quickly on this Texans defense. And that's really what they're going to have to rely on in this game.
Lewis, on the running game front. Mostert is available today. We haven't seen him go over 10 carries certainly the last 6 weeks. I know he obviously was out for one, and then he was kind of in the doghouse with the fumbling. Do you see more of a reliance on him today at all, or is this just Achane?
There's going to be more Achane. Like, they have basically decided that he is the main guy. He's the one who's always going to get the first approach. And when coaches start talking about how in certain situations they still feel like Achane is the best option, that's them basically justifying their decision to say, no, we're not going to play situational. Devon Achane is our number one back. Raheem Mostert is the reserve back. We keep talking about how Miami doesn't want bell cows. It seems to be that's no longer the case. They want Achane to be the bell cow back. So, and if that's how they want to play it, that's fine. But understand that you're going to have to, again, I keep talking about why you need to get better up front, not just make sure that the scheme is executed properly. Achane is not a bulldozer. If you are going to make him your 20 carry guy back, then you need to understand that you need to make guys who can open up bigger holes for him, because he needs a little more space to be able to wiggle through and find somebody and find a place to break free. He's not going to break a bunch of tackles in the backfield because he's not one of the biggest guys out there. So right now, with the offensive line in shambles as it is, whether it's Ryan Hayes or Jackson Carman or whoever it is at right tackle, you're going to have some struggles there. You're going to have to try to go up the middle, and that means you're going to need Liam Eichenberg to try to open up some holes. Again, I see Eichenberg on the floor too much. That's just my personal opinion on the matter. Robert Jones, I feel like, should have been replaced by Isaiah Wynn already, because, again, he is the more talented player, regardless of how long Jones has been playing all year. I just feel like talent should win out. That's the way I approach everything. The only thing that I like, really, is that Patrick Paul has shown that he's getting better. His technique is improving. As a run blocker, I'm not worried about him bulldozing. He can bulldoze whoever the heck he wants. He can bulldoze two people at once if he wants to. That's how monstrous he is. Honestly, if they're going to try to run the football, I would just always run left every time and just let Patrick Paul just push people over. That's kind of how I've concluded the run game. I personally feel like, just me, I know we're going to get into price picks a little bit later on. I already have my props all lined up, but I have Tua over 25 completions today because he's going to be throwing the ball a lot. He may throw the ball 50 times today. I really don't think they're going to try to run the ball much at all today, just because it's not going to work.
Well, the prop on Tua, by the way, is 37 attempts today. He's been over that the last 3, so we'll get into that here in a second. But I want to get there. I know, Eric Smith, you did a stream this week about why they can't run the ball and why the running game has struggled. I just want to go through. This was a guy who led the league in yards per carry last year. Devon Achane's last 5 games, yards per carry, 1.7, 2.0, 3.2, 4.3, 3.1. I mean, that's taken his number for the season all the way down to 3.9. So I guess, I mean, and last year it was like his yards before contact was best in the league also, and that has not been the case this season at all. So how do they give us a synopsis, which you talked about the other day? How do they get him free?
I'm not making excuses for the offensive line. They still have their faults in that. They're definitely a part of it. But, when you look at some of the other stuff that's happened, the last 2 weeks, they've had explosive runs from Achane that have been called back by penalties from Hill and Ingold, right? So you got to clean up that stuff where you're not shooting yourself in the foot by losing those big plays. When you
Coach,
look at the
only reason the big play happened was because of the penalty.
Well, yeah.
Neither of those are true. Neither of those were necessary. Hill didn't need to hold it all, and if Engel just stays to the outside and is run fit, then that's not necessary either. When you look at the big average last year, right? Then you had some of those plays where HN is ruining angles and just being able to outrun defenders, and that goes across the board. Like, we haven't really had any of the skill players on offense that are just making those wow plays that turn into explosive plays. So there's been a drop off across the board with stuff like that.
I got Eric Wadicki on this. When you look at Tua, and we talk about maybe throwing the ball more, or I mean, he's throwing the ball a lot lately. Like, I look at the last 3 games. I mean, 47 attempts. This is not the way they were supposed to be leaning at this point of the season, where his attempts would be going up and up and up. But you do expect a big attempt game today, and again, that's the short stuff mostly. All right, I swear, we're gonna do it again. Here we go. This is gonna be my task for the year. I know Eric's stream's a little bit behind today, so by the time that he actually hears this, I'm gonna Wiedeke. I got it right.
I'm synced up right now. I'm synced up.
Now you're synced up. Now we got you synced up from a pronunciation standpoint as well. I don't have to just keep saying the 2 Erics. I actually got it correct for the first time ever. All right, go ahead.
There you go. Yeah, I think this is going to be a game where you see a lot of Tua throwing the football. Number one, because when you're unable to run the football on first and second down, or on first down, and really keep your offense on schedule, it demands you to throw the football. Number one. Number two, I think this is a game where they may be trailing for a decent portion of the game. And so game script is going to demand that they throw the football quite a bit. It's just everything points to this is going to be a really high attempt game from Tua, from the way McDaniel approaches it, to what the offense is capable of, to what the game is likely to call for.
Lewis, let's switch to the other side now. CJ Stroud's been a bit of a disappointment this year. I can tell you, because he's my fantasy quarterback. It's been a bit of a frustration. Last year by the end of last season, he was lighting it up. They've gone to more of a run-based offense here a little bit with Mixon, but again, you still have you have pretty good players on the outside that they're gonna have to deal with today. Collins obviously has come into his own here. The Dolphins defense in the secondary, I haven't seen Javon Holland make a play since week 1. Just it seems like that's headed towards him going somewhere else. Who's got to make plays today besides Ramsey and Sealer? Because it seems like it's always coming back to the 2 of them.
It's going to come down to Chop Robinson. He has a unique opportunity here. They're going to put Blake Fisher on the tackle spot, and they're basically making it so that Titus Howard is going to be moved to left guard, and Blake Fisher is going to be at right tackle. So this is a great opportunity for Chop Robinson to take on somebody who's playing semi out of position. I know that versatility is the name of the game these days with offensive linemen. I personally just want 5 guys who are really good at the one spot they play, but that's just me. But I get versatility. I understand it. This is an opportunity, though, because somebody like Chop, he's trying to come on with his pass rushing. This is a great chance for him to actually start getting a few sacks of his own. Blake Fisher is not a right tackle by trade, so this is a chance for him. And as for Sealer and Ramsey, let's not even talk about Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey's job is to just not slip and fall, because that was how the Jets got some big plays out of last week, because he just wasn't there because his cleats didn't catch the turf well. Sealer is going to be the main guy here. They're moving Blake Fisher around, they're moving Titus Howard around, they're moving all these players around. Everybody's now suddenly shuffled around, they're out of position. To Coach's point, when you have guys who are not playing with the same compatibility, the same chemistry, because now you have this guy here and this guy here and this guy over here instead, now everything is all jumbled up. Zach Sealer is a playmaker. He is our bulldozer. He does everything. He can sack, he can stuff the run, he can do everything. So with somebody like a CJ Stroud, who does have a certain level of mobility, if Chop Robinson is going to get some sacks today, that means that CJ Stroud cannot be allowed to step up in the pocket and make throws. That's Sealer's job. When Sealer starts getting pressure up the middle, then Stroud has to go to the boundaries to find space to move. That's when Chop can come in. So it's going to take a combination of the both of them if we're going to be able to stop the Texans offense. So the Texans offensive line, as weak as it is, it's going to be between Sealer and Chop. And if those two guys can get home, then Miami's got a shot. If not, Tua's going to have to play perfect. And even then, it might not be enough.
Well, that's the thing we talk about all the time is Tua having to play perfect. Last 4 weeks, highest completion percentage of any 4-week span over the course of his career. He's got 11 touchdowns since his last interception. I mean, I'm not sure he can play much more perfect, but the first bad throw he has today, I'm sure that we'll hear about from everybody. All right, let's pivot over to Prize Picks here, and then we'll get to our picks today. Houston's beatable. Like, I mean, they lost to Tennessee recently. Like, this is, I mean, it's going to be a tough environment. I just have PTSD when it comes to this rivalry because I was there on a year when the Dolphins were supposed to go to the Super Bowl and they launched that, and I watched from the field as Houston beat them in the first game, and they never beat the Texans. Was it 1996 since they won there or something like that? I know it's different people there, but it's part of my PTSD. We'll get into the picks. All right, let's get to some of the props here today because it feels like we've gone a couple of different directions here. My guy David Eversole really liked Tua under on attempts today, and I like him over. I'm with Eric Wiedeke on that one. See, look at that. Got it right first try. Okay. But on the running game today, let's go to you first on this, Lewis. Devon, would you play him over on anything?
Over as far as rushing? No, absolutely not. I personally feel like Miami needs a strong offensive line, a good executing offensive line. And right now we're down to our bare bones tackles. And again, this isn't a shot at Patrick Paul. This is much more about the lack of faith I have on the right side of the line. Again, I don't like Liam Eichenberg. I don't think he's good enough overall. I think he needs to go. He needs to be replaced next year. Whoever right tackle is, whether it's Carmen or Hayes, I don't even know the answer to that. We'll find that out as soon as the game starts. I don't have enough faith to say that they're going to be able to do much in the run game because there's a reason they're that far down the depth chart. There's a reason Hayes was on the practice squad and he wasn't kept around. Like we brought him back recently. He wasn't even on the practice squad for a good chunk of the year. So the Miami Dolphins right now, as far as rushing the football, I'm not holding my breath. I am just hoping that Tua gets the ball out fast enough that they'll be able to get the job done. And also, I just very briefly, I don't know if you noticed, but a goblin just showed up on Jason Sanders' field goal number. Like it literally just popped into existence. So you just lost money if you were going to bet on that one.
Yeah, I saw that one earlier. I like Waddle over 4.5 receptions, though, because of what we're talking about. He's going to have to throw the ball a lot, and I think they'll get him on some of the quicker stuff. And you can see that the targets have gone up lately. The receptions have gone up lately. I wouldn't play Hill on yardage or anything like that. Let's go to Smith, though. Well, let's go to our Smith on Smith. Do you think we no catches for him in 4 quarters last week, and then all of a sudden he took off in the overtime. It seems like one or the other. They either get Smith involved, or they get the receivers involved. You think he goes over 4.5 today?
Yeah, I would definitely play the over on his receptions today. I think that Smith versus the Texans linebackers is going to be a big time, mismatch. And with Tua needing to get the ball out quickly, I think Smith is going to be able to win quickly against those linebackers and create some easy catches.
Okay, on the other side, my favorite prop, because I always take the tight end against the Dolphins. I like Dalton Schultz over 30.5 receiving yards. Is there anything on this board? Stroud has been under that 256.5 lately, so I found it hard to play that one. I don't think he's going to throw for big yardage against the Dolphins. And there you go. You see he's been right around that number lately. And then Mixon, just check out Mixon here for a second as we go to him. I think he was at there he is. What are we at with Mixon? Longest rush 17.5, and then 79.5 rushing yards. Eric, would you play that over?
Maybe not straight rushing yards. I would probably play rushing plus receiving on a guy like Joe Mixon today.
Okay.
Yeah.
105.5 today for him. Let's check out CJ Stroud specifically before we get to the picks. It seems like a little bit of a sophomore slump for him. He hasn't taken a huge step back, but he certainly hasn't taken the step forward this season. Coach, how do they make life uncomfortable for him today?
Well, like we said earlier, having Blake Fisher in at right tackle is going to be a huge opportunity for Chop Robinson, you're going to get the interior push with Zach Sealer. Hopefully, Robinson's able to get some quick wins over Fisher and able to finish on some of those sacks. I think that Houston is going to have some of the same issues that the Dolphins are going to have in terms of being able to run the ball in a similar scheme with the pieces that they're moving around. I think that, for Houston to succeed, I think they're also going to have to be throwing the ball quick. Stroud's going to have to get the ball out quick. And when he doesn't, then it's going to have to be Chop Robinson winning over Blake Fisher to close that out.
All right, let's get to the picks. Lewis, I'll let you go first on this one. I don't feel a lot of optimism coming from you, but let's give it a shot. They need this game. We can talk about what happens with these other teams. The Colts beating the Broncos today would be helpful, correct? Because you need the Broncos to lose twice at the very least. So you need a Colts win today, and then the Colts to lose one of these other games down the road. Broncos, you're still looking at that possible game against the Chiefs. I don't know if the Chiefs are going to need it or not, the last game of the season. But anyway, there's a lot of things that need to happen. But one thing that's not going to happen, I don't think, is the Dolphins making the playoffs unless they win out. I mean, it's 27% right now for them to make the playoffs. That's according to ESPN Analytics. But it feels to me like unless they can get themselves to 10-7, it's not going to happen. Lewis, do they win today or do they lose?
I'm going to go against my better judgment. And I am going to say that this is the day that the Dolphins finally break their winning record opponent streak comes to an end. It's going to be ugly. Don't get me wrong. And it's not going to be ugly in the sense that they won't score. They're going to score. But the other problem is that the Texans are definitely going to score too. But with all that being said, I have faith in Tua to be able to avoid the pass rush and to be able to find the open man. I have faith that he will find a way to get it done somehow. And as far as the actual score, I'm going to say something along the lines of Miami going to be winning this game. They're going to have to put up at least 30. And I think it's going to come down to Jason Sanders with a field goal. I'm just going to throw a number out there. I'm going to say it's 33-32 last minute in the fourth quarter. Tua is going to lead them just far enough for Jason Sanders to put the game away.
I'm looking at Better Edge right now, where, by the way, you can use the code 5RSN, get $20 to play right away. The Dolphins are 3-point dogs. Over-under is 43.5. So basically, the people are calling this a push because they're giving the Texans a 3-point favorite line at home, which essentially is the pick'em line, and a bunch of other orders on here. Eric, let's go to Coach on this. You think it's going to be that high scoring? I mean, Lewis going way over the over-under here. He's like, it's 43.5. You're saying 67, something along those lines.
No, I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think that we're going to see a lot of dink and dunk passing from both sides of the ball. I think they're going to struggle in the red zone when both teams can't run the ball due to the struggles with the offensive line. I'm looking at more of a 23-17 victory for the Dolphins, where we get, some Jason Sanders field goals when they can't finish in the red zone with the lack of running game today.
Eric?
Boy, I'm gonna have to be the first negative Nancy here, I guess. I'll go with Houston 27-17. The offensive line is just not good enough right now, and this is a case where you have the better quarterback, but you're not better in many other places.
I'm going to push it even here, so we need somebody else to break the tie. Call it my PTSD on Houston-Miami matchups. I want to see Tua break through in one of these situations. I don't care if this is not a cold weather game. This is a tough spot. This is a tough spot, big game, and so I want to see him break through. I think he's going to play well. I do. I have more concerns on the defensive side today, and I'm worried in general. I mentioned Schultz. I have a feeling a big game comes from him today. I understand the issues. Houston's offensive line, they've given up more than 40 sacks this year. So there is obviously a way to get Stroud off his game a little bit. But we call it a hunch play here. But I'm going to say Sanders misses a big field goal late. I'm going to go with Houston right at the number. I'm going to say Houston by 3 today. So I really wouldn't bet it either way. But the Dolphins need this game. If they get this game, then we're going to have a fun end to this thing. Also, we can see them get the 7 seed potentially and then go lose up in Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Kansas City, or Baltimore, which, by the way, are the last 4 teams to eliminate them in the playoffs. Those are their 4 options. Okay, you get to go to one of those 4 places, place where I think everybody would bet against them at this stage. All right, appreciate Lewis, Coach Eric Wiedeke. We accomplished something on this show. See if the Dolphins accomplish anything today. Go to Prize Picks. Use the code 5 Better Edge. Use the code 5 RSN. We'll be back for post game. Have a good day, everybody.